In this video, we are going to have a look at the best 16 OneDrive settings that you should deploy onto a Windows 11 machine by using Intune to have a great user experience. So let's get started. So let's head to the Intune portal where we deploy the policy. So let's head back to intune.microsoft.com. So that's our admin center. And we go into devices and we go into Windows by platform and we go into configuration profile. So as you can see, we have a few configuration profiles that we have set up as part of the video series. We need one more, which is specific to OneDrive, and we are targeting about 16 ideal settings to make it a great experience for the end users. So for that, let's click Create and say New Policy. And we select our platform as Windows 10 and later, and the profile type as Settings Catalog. And then we click the Create button. Let's give it a name, say OneDrive Settings for Windows. Looks good enough. Let's copy that and put the same for the description as well. Platform is pre-filled as Windows 10 and later. And click Next. And here we are presented with the Settings Catalog. And we click on the Add Settings option to bring up the picker. And since we are trying to get the settings related to OneDrive, let's search for OneDrive and see what settings comes up. So here we select the category as OneDrive, double click on that one, and it loads all the settings related to OneDrive on the bottom pane. We have 91 results for the OneDrive category, so we shouldn't be thinking of setting all the 91 settings. We just go for the ideal ones that we need. So I have picked about 16 of them, which will make it a good user experience for our end users. So I have already selected the settings, so let's just flip back to the settings picker on the other page. And these are the settings that I have chosen. So let's close the settings picker and go through the options one by one. So the first one we have is silently move Windows non-folders to OneDrive. Now what this means is we are trying to move 3 folders, which is desktop, documents, and the pictures folder onto OneDrive silently. This is especially useful if you are trying to deploy OneDrive into an organization which is already using, say for example, home drives, which are pointing to on-prem servers or online servers, and we want to move all those data into OneDrive. So it silently moves those folders into OneDrive without any user intervention. So let's enable those ones, and we should enable the desktop, the documents, the picture. And you also get an option to see whether we should show any notification for the users after the folders have been redirected. It's better not to, because it might confuse some of the users and they might raise some help desk calls asking as to what it is all about. So it's just best to silently move the folders into OneDrive so that we know the data is safe. Now we don't need the tenant ID over here. It's an optional field. It used to be a mandatory one. If you do want to specify, you can go ahead and specify. We do need the tenant ID for a couple of other settings later on. So in order to find your tenant ID, you go back into the Entra ID portal. So let's go into entra.microsoft.com. And in the overview page, in the middle section, you have the tenant ID specified. You can click the copy button to copy the tenant ID, and you can specify it in the profile here. It's an optional one, at least in this particular setting, but let's fill it in for the sake of it. Now, the second option that we have is co-author and share in Office desktop apps. Now, what it means is it enables co-authoring on a document that you're working on. So if the document is stored in OneDrive or Teams or SharePoint, and if you're editing it, you could as well enable the option for your colleague to edit the same document at the same time, and you will both see the changes as to what you're making. So it's a good collaboration option. Nice to have, so let's enable that. Now the next one that we have is warn users who are low on disk space. So this is especially useful when they are trying to download the OneDrive files. And if they have a massive amount of files that they are trying to download onto a machine which is running out of space on the hard disk, you want them to warn them. So we can enable that option. Now here we have to specify the minimum available disk space that you should have on the device before the warning kicks in. So if it reaches that disk space remaining X amount of data, X amount of gigs, then it will warn the users. So here, the number that we specify here is in megs. So here we are trying to warn the users when the minimum available disk space becomes 20 gig. So 2048 is 2 gig when you convert it into megs, and then you put a 0 to make it 20 gig. So when the hard disk space, remaining space becomes 20 gig, you warn the users. Next one is use OneDrive files on demand. So that's the on-demand version of files. So these files are not stored on the machine, but they are visible in the Explorer for the end user. They are stored online, and when the user double clicks on that particular file, it gets downloaded automatically behind the scenes and the file gets opened. So that's the file on demand. It's good to have that. Next one up is silently sign in users to the OneDrive Sync app with their Windows credentials. This is very useful feature. So if there is one thing that you want to take out of this particular video, enable this particular feature. So it silently signs in the user using the Windows credentials. So it makes sense if you have a Entra ID join machine and you're using an Entra ID to log into the machine, it silently logs into the user into the OneDrive application and it starts syncing the data in the background. The same goes if you have a hybrid Entra ID join device, and if you're using an Entra ID to log into the particular machine, you can use this option to silently sign into the OneDrive application that you have. Next up is require users to confirm large delete operations. So you might have users when they try and clean up their disks when they run out of space. You want them to be notified if they are deleting large amount of data from their OneDrive. You can enable that particular option so that whenever you have large delete operations, they are notified. So let's click on the information bubble. So it says this setting makes users confirm that they want to delete files in the cloud when they delete a large number of synced files. So yeah, basically what it says. Now, next one up is prompt users when they delete multiple OneDrive files on their local computer. You can enable that option, and you can say when they try and delete, say, X number of files from the device, you want them to be notified to say that you are deleting X number of files and do you want to continue. You can pick a sensible number depending upon the usage of OneDrive in your organization. Let's say, in my case, I would go for, say, 50. So if the users are deleting more than 50 number of files in one go, you want users to be prompted and confirm that they are deleting X number of files, and they are good with that particular application being deleted, or whatever files that they are trying to delete. Next up is prevent users from syncing personal OneDrive accounts. So you don't want users to be using their own personal OneDrive accounts in a corporate machine. So you want that to be disabled. So you want to enable that policy which prevents the users from syncing any personal Microsoft accounts being used with their personal OneDrive. So that helps them to move files back and forth between the corporate and the personal ones. So let's prevent that one by enabling the policy. Now, exclude specific kind of files from being uploaded. That's a good enough option. If you are more security conscious, you could say, okay, you want to exclude certain number of files, certain type of files. So you could say star.exe, star.msi, star.psd, whatever file extensions that comes to your mind, which is not ideal for your organization to be uploaded into the OneDrive. You can just specify it here. In addition to star.exes, you could specify certain files. Say, for example, application name.exe, setup.exe for one particular application, say setup.exe. And if you have an application, app setup.exe, if you know the exe file name of a particular application, then you can just block that as well. If you have bespoke apps that you have developed within the company, you can do that. Or you can just have a wildcard option with star.exe. Next up is enable automatic upload bandwidth management for OneDrive. So here what it does is the OneDrive Sync app automatically manages the bandwidth that you have on that particular machine from an upload download perspective. So if there are other applications that is using the bandwidth available on your device, OneDrive Sync processes the upload or download and then manages it automatically. So depending upon the available bandwidth, it sensibly shares the bandwidth other applications that you have in the machine, so that you don't go into a bottleneck in which OneDrive is just trying to sync large number of files and the other applications doesn't work. Next up are a few disable options. Disable the tutorial that appears at the end of the OneDrive setup. You don't want these things when the OneDrive app is being set up. Similarly, disable animation that appears during the OneDrive setup. You don't want that. Now, configure team site libraries to sync automatically. So this is a good enough option if you have a team site which you want to be automatically mapped in the Windows Explorer for all the users. One good example would be an onboarding, new user onboarding team site, or it could be help desk team site, which lists all the information on how to raise a help desk ticket, whom to contact, what are the email addresses, telephone numbers, any kind of useful information. So let's select that. And here we have to specify a name for the site, and you have to give the value. So the name is what appears in the Windows Explorer for the user. So that's completely up to you. So for example, in my case, I'm going for help desk. So I have a help desk site. Now here the value is the library ID. Now it's a bit tricky to find that. In the sense, you need to go into the site. You click on the sync option that you have, and we cancel out, and we say copy library ID. Now close that out. Now the library ID comes up like this. So if I paste the information, so it's tenant ID equals and that long string, and then you have a HTTPS, a link as well to that help desk site that we have. Now this is of no use to be specified in the policy. We want these this %2, %5s to be converted to dash and slash and everything. So for that, we have a good enough PowerShell command that we can use. So let's head back to the PowerShell ISE. So the command that we need to use is this one. So URI, so let's just paste that. I'll put that in the description. So this is what we want. So we want the string to be within the string that we have copied within this brackets. So we paste that in. Sorry, we paste this particular value that we have copied across. Let's copy it again. Cancel out, copy library ID, close. Let's go back to PowerShell, paste it in, close the string. There you go. Now, if you execute this line number 8, it spits out what we have given. So the URI and tenant ID equals blah, blah, blah towards the end. So that's the long string that we have specified over here, line number 8. Now, next to that, we get another string, which is the converted one. So the second line and the third line is what we want. So if we copy that and paste it over here, just to get a look at the contents that we have, let's get to the, say, line number 10. So line number 8 is our input that contains our input, and line number 10 and 11 is the output that we want. So from here, say, if you look at, say, %2, that has been converted to dashes, %5 over here, %7, all those things have been converted to dash and slash and everything, ampersand, whatever. So we copy this value that we have, copy it across, and we put it in the policy that we are trying to create. Let's go back, and the value, we just paste it there. So this particular team site or team library gets synced up, and it gets shown in the Windows Explorer for the end user. Now it will take a while for this particular library to be synced up. Microsoft says anywhere between 8 hours and 24 hours, depending upon the number of files and the number of people who have this mapped up. It might be even longer. So you just need to be a bit more patient with this particular setting, but it will eventually show up. Next up is block file downloads when users are low on disk space. So above we were warning the users over here. In this setting, we were warning users when they are low on disk space, with 20 gig being the setting. Here we are blocking the file downloads when the users are low on disk space. We enable that, and here we are specifying 10 gig. So if the device is having only minimum available disk space of 10 gig, then we block any more files being downloaded, and they get notified. Next up is allow users to contact Microsoft for feedback and support. We don't want that. So allowing that, enabling that will enable the users to be able to contact Microsoft. We don't want that, so we keep it disabled. And the last option that we need is allow syncing OneDrive accounts for only specific organizations. So it's basically what it says in the tin. It only allows certain organizations' OneDrive accounts to be synced from this particular machine. We want that, and here we specify the tenant ID. Let's delete that. Let's pick up the tenant ID back from the Intune portal, the Entra ID portal. Go back in, and let's paste our tenant ID. So that's good. So these are the settings that we need for a seamless user experience. So let's click on next. Scope tags are completely optional. Let's click on next. And here in the assignments tab, we specify the group to which we want this to be deployed, or to all devices or to all users. So I do have a group. I believe it's called Intune POC. It's over here. So I'm specifying that as the scope boundary. So it's 1 device and 3 users in it. Let's click on next. And here we get a summary of everything that we have enabled and the settings that we have specified so far. And we are assigning it to a group called Intune POC, which contains 3 users and 1 devices. And we're good to go. We click on create. The policy straight away gets created. As it says on the top right-hand corner, policy is created and the green checkbox. Let's click on the refresh button to bring up the policy in the list. OneDrive settings for Windows. So this is the one that we have created. It's Windows 10 and later, settings from the catalog, and it's been assigned to one particular group. Now, in order to test it, let's speed up the sync process. So we go into devices, we pick our machine. It's a Windows machine. Let's go back, Windows, find the device that we have, and we use the sync option to kind of speed up the sync between the machine and the endpoint. So we click on sync and it will say Intune will check in with the device. If the check-in is successful, it will sync the current actions or the policies to the device. So would you like to continue? Click on yes. So this is similar to the GP update /force, in which we are triggering the sync without waiting for the periodic sync that happens behind the scenes. We can do the same thing from the end device as well. We go into Windows 11 machine that we have. We click on settings. We click on accounts, access work or school option. We pick on our Entra ID connection that we have. Click on info button that we have. And we use the sync option underneath the device sync status. So we click on sync. So this triggers the sync from the end user. So it starts to poll the Intune platform backend and try to see whether it has anything pending for this particular device, whether it is settings, applications, anything of that sort. And it tries to pull the data into the device. So now we have triggered the sync from both the endpoints, from Intune back into the device and from the device back into the Intune platform. Let's wait for the sync to complete and see whether we have all the settings that we have specified in the OneDrive policy. As you can see, the sync has been completed. So let's close the settings window and see what has happened in the Intune portal. So let's go back to the Intune portal. We click on devices, Windows, and within Windows, we go for the configuration policies. And we pick the policy that we have created, which is OneDrive settings for Windows. We click on that one and we look at the report. So it says one succeeded. So that's our one machine that we have. We click on view report and it says the device name on which the policy was deployed is cloudific-pc. The user who is logged in is joy@cloudific.training. And the check-in status is successful and gives a date and time. So let's go back. And let's take a look at the machine that we have. So over here on the machine, let's see whether we have the OneDrive being automatically signed in and syncing as normal. So over here it says Joy Cloudific Training. So you have the OneDrive mapped. You have the OneDrive Personal being removed from the Windows Explorer. You have the three folders that we want to have moved, so which is desktop, documents, and picture. And I have created a file over here on the desktop, OneDrive move test. So it is on the desktop. Let's see whether it is within the OneDrive as well. So if we go into the desktop folder within OneDrive, sure enough, that particular file is over here. So that's how the non-folder move works. So anything that you have in the desktop, pictures, and documents within the machine gets moved into the corresponding folders within OneDrive. If this video was of interest to you, please check out my other videos in the channel and do consider subscribing to the channel. I upload videos on a daily basis around Microsoft 365, Azure, Intune, PowerShell, Windows, and general IT stuff. Thank you.